To start the season, Victor Wembanyama's shot selection was a major talking point. Through his first 9 games, he was highly efficient within 14 feet of the basket, shooting an impressive 67.9%. However, his accuracy plummeted to just 23.2% on shots beyond that range. Despite this, 82 of his 138 total shot attempts, nearly 60%, came from outside 14 feet. As a result, his shooting splits weren't exactly ideal. A 7-foot for players shooting 41% from the field, 23% from 3, and posting a 51.6% true shooting percentage drew plenty of attention on social media. Many critics argued that he was adopting a Kevin Durant-style shot profile when he should have been modeling his game after players like Giannis Antetokounmpo or Anthony Davis. Everything changed in Game 10 against Utah, where he caught fire, going 6 of -9 from 3. He followed that up with a 6 of 12 performance from deep against Sacramento and then an 8 of -16 explosion against Washington, culminating in a career-high 50-point outing. Now, rather than questioning whether his shot selection is sustainable, the conversation has shifted to just how absurd his ceiling might be. While he continues to take a high volume of threes, it feels like a much larger percentage of his attempts are now coming within the natural flow of the offense. One of the first plays of the game against the Jazz exemplified this shift. They started Wembanyama in the paint before running him off a down screen to create space on the perimeter, where he knocked down a three-pointer. When he operates off the ball like a supersized wing, two key advantages work in his favor. First, most bigs struggle to navigate screens and stay attached to him. Second, his movement is exceptionally sharp, allowing him to find open space, set his feet, and confidently release his jumper. A common play involved him starting in the left corner and being brought toward the ball with a pin-down screen. In this instance, Champagnie slipped the screen, leading to a defensive miscommunication by the Wizards, leaving Wembanyama open. He drew a hard closeout, executed a shot fake to clear the lane, and then attacked the open space to earn a trip to the free throw line. I believe Wembanyama getting these repetitions as a catch-and-shoot player is crucial for his development, especially considering it was one of his biggest weaknesses as a rookie. Last season, among the 115 players who attempted at least 200 catch-and-shoot threes, he ranked dead last in accuracy, making just 28.3%. With the additions of playmakers like Chris Paul and Stephen Castle, it was clear heading into this season that he would play more of an off-ball role. However, if he remained the league's worst catch-and-shoot player, that role wouldn't be nearly as effective. Unfortunately, to start this season, that concern was valid through the first 9 games. He made just 7 of 38 18.4% of his catch-and-shoot threes. What intrigues me most, though, is the rate at which he's taking these shots. As a rookie, he attempted just over 3 catch-and-shoot threes per game. Through the first 9 games of his second season, that number climbed above 4. In this recent stretch, he has made a massive leap, averaging over 9 attempts per game. Several factors likely contribute to this increase, but one thing is clear. His evolving shot selection is transforming his game. He's been on fire, so naturally, he's making a more conscious effort to seek out and take these shots. As I mentioned earlier, though, most of his attempts still come within the natural flow of the offense. That's largely because San Antonio is making a more deliberate effort to find him in favorable spots. Many of his looks are coming in early offense, where he is absolutely lethal as a trailing big. Most big men are taught from day one to drop to the paint first in transition before worrying about anything else. They aren't trained to anticipate a 7-foot for players stepping into top of the key jumpers, especially considering Wembanyama's deep range, which extends as far as the logo. Take this play, for example. He receives the pass just one step inside half-court, while Alex Serre is positioned several feet below the three-point line. Wembanyama fakes a move to gauge Serre's reaction, and when Serre holds his ground inside the arc, Wembanyama decides that's simply too much space and lets it fly. Later in the same game, we saw a nearly identical play with Wembanyama stepping into a pass as the trailer. This time, when he up-faked, Serre bid on the fake, allowing Wembanyama to put the ball on the floor and drive to the rim. He actually gets defenders to bite on his shot fakes more consistently than most shooters, and that's a direct result of his absurd height. If defenders don't overcome it on closeouts, he can simply shoot right over them as if they don't exist. The only real way to prevent him from getting these shots off at volume is to stay glued to him at all times. That's what makes him such a valuable floor spacer. The Wizards rely on Serre as their last line of defense at the rim, but because he has to stay attached to Wembanyama up top, he's unable to help on drives, allowing Wesley to get an easy layup. The same principle applies when the ball is in Wembanyama's hands. Serre is forced to stay tight on him, leaving the paint wide open. The result: Beal cuts into that space for another easy opportunity, and Wembanyama finds him for a trip to the free throw line. With the ball in his hands up top, he can function as both an initiator and a floor spacer, allowing San Antonio to take advantage of the open space in the paint in a variety of ways, whether through screening actions, cutting, or high-low sets, with one of their wings posting up a favorable matchup. That said, he spends most of his time playing off the ball, often as a screener, where he's starting to develop strong chemistry with Chris Paul. CP3 excels at putting pressure on bigs in pick-and-roll situations, especially when they're in drop coverage. And when Wembanyama is shooting as well as he has been, there isn't a more dangerous option on the pick-and-pop. His height makes him virtually uncontestable even when a third defender rotates over from the weak side to close off space early. It hardly matters. As lethal as he's been in pick-and-pop situations, I'd still argue he's most dangerous when rolling to the basket. If he catches the ball anywhere near the rim, it feels like an automatic bucket, even if it's just a simple pass that gives him downhill momentum. No matter how many defenders clog the paint, his length and touch allow him to generate a high-quality shot. Because of this, most defenses do everything in their power to limit his opportunities near the basket. Defenses try to prevent Wembanyama from catching the ball in these situations. If the opposing big picks up Chris Paul, a third defender rotates over to deny the pass, and that roll gravity plays a huge role in creating open three-point opportunities. Take this play, for example. Wembanyama slips a ball screen, and Keegan Murray immediately drops from one pass away to help, leaving Castle wide open for a three. Though the shot misses, Wembanyama secures the offensive rebound and throws it down for a second chance score. I'd argue that the most effective defensive coverage against Wembanyama as a screener is to switch as much as possible. However, it has to be done with precise timing and the right personnel, or the Spurs will exploit mismatches. Mismatch hunting is why some teams hesitate to switch. On this back screen, Murray stays glued to Wembanyama to avoid forcing Keon Ellis into a switch against the much bigger Wembanyama. But by doing so, he doesn't contest the cut, allowing Keldon Johnson an easy dunk. The same principle applies when Wembanyama is the one coming off a back screen. The defender P doesn't want to leave him open on a cut, so he sinks into the lane while Serre, reluctant to switch, continues to chase from behind. Just that brief moment where two defenders focus on Wembanyama off the ball is enough for Champagnie to find space on the wing and get set for a high-quality three. I really like the way San Antonio uses Wembanyama as a weapon off screens. I've already touched on his movement shooting, but he's also utilized off back screens and cross screens to establish deep post position, allowing him to get into quick scoring moves off the catch. In fact, I think his back to the basket scoring has been somewhat overlooked. Even in the first few games of the season, he was very effective. Of course, because of his high center of gravity and relatively light frame, some wings can sit down and hold their ground against him. but that hasn't stopped him from being a real threat in the post. Forcing him into tougher shots over the top is one way defenses try to slow him down, but one thing I've really liked is his decisiveness when he receives the entry pass. He quickly scans the floor for potential double teams and immediately goes to work. A one-dribble spin move here leads to an easy finish. A lot of his post touches come in the middle of the floor, which puts him in a great position to see everything and counter any defensive help. In this instance, he decides to face up, spins into a drive, and then delivers a no-look kick out to the corner, although Castle is unable to capitalize. The next possession starts the exact same way. However, instead of help coming from the corner, the defense sends a late double from the opposite wing. Wembanyama stays patient, makes the right read, and moves the ball to Champagne in the corner this time for 3 points. I've been a huge fan of his decision-making when operating from the middle of the floor. If he catches the ball without an immediate shot, passing option, or lane to attack, he doesn't force the issue. Instead, he calmly dribbles back out to the perimeter to initiate a two-man game with Chris Paul, allowing the point guard to do what he does best. You'll also notice that whenever he sets up in the middle of the floor, all eyes are on him. Here, Utah is in a zone, and look at the defensive attention he commands. Cody Williams is botting him, Lauri Markkanen is aggressively covering the middle, and Walker Kessler is playing the block. Meanwhile, nobody is paying attention to Castle, who steps into a wide-open, warm-up jumper. The same thing happens whenever he sets up on the open side of the floor. The double team comes almost instantly. However, he consistently makes the right read as a playmaker, leading to quality three-point shots from the corner. I mentioned his decisiveness, and that applies not only as a scorer but also as a passer. While establishing position, he notices BB Carrington cheating over, so the moment he touches the ball, he fires a bullet pass to Vellum. By the time Carrington realizes what's happening, it's too late. Even getting a hand up is impossible. He's not just capable of making these reads from a standstill, either. If left in single coverage initially, he'll attack, and if he draws late help, he's quick to find the open man, creating high percentage offense. I actually don't think he gets nearly enough credit for the kind of passer he already is. Most second-year bigs don't have the vision to consistently make even the most basic reads, whereas Wembanyama is already delivering pinpoint skip passes to open shooters on the opposite side of the court. His height gives him access to passing angles most players can't reach, allowing him to make over-the-top deliveries with ease. He's also not afraid to take risks, threading the needle through tight windows, and his teammates certainly benefit from it. It's fun to see him operate in a more traditional big man role at times, because it's not just his perimeter skills at his size that make him a unicorn, it's how he seamlessly pairs them with classic center abilities. For example, he's an imposing rim runner in transition. When trailing the play, it takes multiple defenders to slow his momentum, but he's also a quick decision-maker and a skilled enough passer to find the open man. The Kings found this out the hard way when Domantas Sabonis sat down and they went to their smaller lineup with Trey Lyles at the 5. Wembanyama completely dominated them. The Spurs dominated the offensive glass, generating second-chance opportunity after second-chance opportunity. If you know anything about second chances, you know how efficient they are even for the worst defenses in the NBA, and when the player grabbing those rebounds is capable of making plays like this, it becomes even more dangerous. If you're still not convinced, let me remind you another way for a 7 feet 4 inches unicorn to counter a smaller defender is simply to spot up from 30 feet out and shoot over the top. Smaller defenders physically can't get a proper contest, making it nearly impossible to stop him. The key to all of this is his offensive versatility. Take this play, for example. Castle calls for Wembanyama to set a ball screen, but instead of doing so, he runs behind him to receive a handoff. When no defender jumps out to contest, he gets a clean look from 3. This is what people mean when they talk about him being a giant with guard skills. He can operate as a pick-and-roll ball handler, and if he draws to defenders, his height gives him a passing window nearly every time. If he doesn't draw too, good luck finding a big who can fight over a screen and stay in front of him as he attacks open space. He's not the most explosive or the strongest player, but he is a skilled ball handler, which allows him to get into the paint, where his length and finishing touch take care of the rest. What we're seeing this year with his development is the addition of new counters. In this play, he starts with a left-hand drive that gets cut off, so he spins back to his right only to up fake before stepping through in a very Giannis-esque sequence. Regardless of where he's positioned on the floor, his expanding skill set is making him an increasingly unstoppable force. Defenders are almost always going to pressure him tightly, and that's because of how dangerous his length is when given space to attack. Not only does his handle allow him to create separation on drives, but every now and then you get a glimpse of something absolutely terrifying. However, I do want to make it clear that his on-ball game on the perimeter is still very much a work in progress. It will likely take a few more years before this becomes a consistent source of offense for him. Due to his height and length, his handle can be somewhat loose, making him prone to more live-dribble turnovers. That's one of the key reasons he's best suited playing off the ball for now. When he tries to do too much as a creator, defenders can crowd his airspace and significantly limit his ability to get where he wants to go. Another area he still needs to refine is his shot selection. I'm not a huge fan of some of his pull-up threes in transition, even when he knocks down a few. Additionally, there are half-court possessions where a more patient approach could lead to a higher quality shot. But as soon as he sees even the slightest opening, he's letting it fly regardless of where he is on the floor. Defenders are almost always going to pressure him tightly, and that's because of how dangerous his length is when given space to attack. Not only does his handle allow him to create separation on drives, but every now and then you get a glimpse of something absolutely terrifying. However, I do want to make it clear that his on-ball game on the perimeter is still very much a work in progress. It will likely take a few more years before this becomes a consistent source of offense for him. Due to his height and length, his handle can be somewhat loose, making him prone to more live-dribble turnovers. That's one of the key reasons he's best suited playing off the ball for now. When he tries to do too much as a creator, defenders can crowd his airspace and significantly limit his ability to get where he wants to go. Another area he still needs to refine is his shot selection. I'm not a huge fan of some of his pull-up threes in transition, even when he knocks down a few. Additionally, there are half-court possessions where a more patient approach could lead to a higher quality shot. But as soon as he sees even the slightest opening, he's letting it fly regardless of where he is on the floor. Defenders are almost always going to pressure him tightly, and that's because of how dangerous his length is when given space to attack. Not only does his handle allow him to create separation on drives, but every now and then you get a glimpse of something absolutely terrifying. However, I do want to make it clear that his on-ball game on the perimeter is still very much a work in progress. It will likely take a few more years before this becomes a consistent source of offense for him. Due to his height and length, his handle can be somewhat loose, making him prone to more live-dribble turnovers. That's one of the key reasons he's best suited playing off the ball for now. When he tries to do too much as a creator, defenders can crowd his airspace and significantly limit his ability to get where he wants to go. Another area he still needs to refine is his shot selection. I'm not a huge fan of some of his pull-up threes in transition, even when he knocks down a few. Additionally, there are half-court possessions where a more patient approach could lead to a higher quality shot. But as soon as he sees even the slightest opening, he's letting it fly regardless of where he is on the floor.